Okay, good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing today? Just give me a quick notice. Let me know you can hear me all right before we get started. Sound is all right for everyone? All right, beautiful. Thank you, Bridget. So we'll go ahead and we'll get started. We can all just join palms as we begin. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. And keeping the palms joined. All right. Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all doing well today. Just like to get started with a little question, just as everybody jumps on here. And before we start the meditation, we'll take a few moments just to allow everyone to get settled and begin to communicate with each other a little bit. So I think my question for today is, with all this dealing with the pandemic and all the challenges and everything we're facing, uh, how are you doing at getting things accomplished that maybe you weren't able to do before? I think that anytime we have difficulties like this, and even though it's going on 8, 9 months now, for a lot of us, anytime we have challenges, difficulties, change in routine, change in schedules, there's a lot of highs and lows with emotions, a lot of difficulties, a lot of challenges created. But they're also, if you're very aware of your actions and your way of life, there can also be a lot of time to create and a lot of beautiful things that can happen during moments like this. And I think it's important for me as a practitioner always to stay really positive, to not discount or ignore the pandemic and what's going on, but to also recognize that we, for many of us, have a lot of extra time potentially on our hands where we're at home and maybe bored and not spending time the way we used to, which again can often create more time and opportunities to be more productive and do things that maybe you weren't able to do before. So I guess back to my original question, which is, during this pandemic and even just recently, how well are you doing at being productive and getting things done? The Buddhist teachings, they talk a lot about diligence and right effort. So it's something to explore that my first teacher, she said, she was a Buddhist nun from Taiwan, and she said, busy is the best nutrition. And for someone like me who often had a lot of free time, that would lead the mind down paths that were probably not beneficial or healthy. So she always taught me to stay busy. And so for the last 18 years, I've been doing that. But what it means is a lot of what we would typically look at downtime is also time to be productive. So if you are new, welcome. There's a chat box there on the screen. Feel free to just chime in your thoughts. I'll go ahead and type it in. But again, my question to get us started these first few moments before we do a meditation is, how productive are you during this time? Or how much time are you wasting, I guess, is another way to look at it on the flip side. I'll go ahead and type it in here for those who just jump on. How productive are you during these times are you getting a lot accomplished? Excuse me. And I'll also add that, I talk a lot about giving ourselves a balance and time to sit and to rest and to allow the mind and body to settle. But then there's also the other time where it's healthy to work and be productive and creative. So there's a balance here for sure. But again, if you're new, go ahead and we'll take a few moments here before we sit to just share. Again, how productive are you during these times? Are you getting a lot accomplished? Are you finding yourself stuck? Are you wasting a lot of time? Where are you at with that? For me, I've found that, after the first probably month or so, once we completely adjusted everything to an online schedule, I just settled into very much the same routine. It just was virtual as opposed to showing up. But what that meant was there was a lot of extra time that was created where you're not gathering or meeting with people in person, or, we're not at the temple all day with people in and out. We're not at Buddha for You all day with people in and out. So there was a big gap of time. And so for me, it's been important to try to work on things that maybe at other times I didn't have time for. So again, try not to waste time. Time I spent in the monastery was something I really appreciated, was watching the monks and nuns at how busy they are. Even if it's simple tasks, just always doing something. If you're sitting and reading, then actually focus on reading. If you're doing your meditation, focus on meditation. If you're gardening, focus on gardening. But to try to keep the mind busy. And again, a balance of being settled. So, all right, so go ahead and share some thoughts here. Bill, while I have more time to get things done, I have not so far been using the extra available time as wisely as I had hoped. I'm guessing I have not. I'm guessing, yeah. Nonetheless, today's a new day and the past is the past. So, yeah, I think what I'm hearing you say is you've not used it as wisely as you would have liked, and not used the available time as wisely as you had hoped. And yeah, again, today's a new day. So now you have the opportunity to start over. And again, I do think downtime is important. I don't want to overlook that, but too much wasted time is maybe not healthy either. So, Eric, I feel like I stay busy, but I'm surprised how little seems accomplished. Yeah, I mean, we can be feeling busy with doing things that, I could find myself busy playing a baseball game on an app for 3 hours, and at the end of the day, all I've accomplished is a bunch of scores. So it's really just a matter of choice. Bridget, I cycle through ups and downs with productivity. Dishes are still piling up where productivity has flourished. Is with creativity, music, and learning about those things. Yeah, for sure. It's funny you said that about the dishes piling up. I think of dishes very similar to leaves, and monastery life. A lot of leaves, a lot of trees, a lot of sweeping. And every day you would sweep the leaves, and the master would always say you must sweep every day, because the next day, if you don't take care of today's, there'll be twice as many leaves. And this is really a metaphor for the mind, that if you don't take care of it every day, without the meditation practice, your mind can the mess it is can become an even greater mess. So very much like the dishes, doing dishes, the time in the kitchen is really an incredibly beautiful Zen practice, from the way you cook to the way you eat to the way you smell the food to the way you clean up. All of it is a really beautiful practice. So think of it as each moment present on preparing food, present on eating food, and present on cleaning is really a wonderful practice. Marisa, I go back and forth between being busy, productive, and not. So much is happening in the world, though, that I don't consider the time I spend just contemplating all of it as wasteful. Yeah, definitely. And I think that's really the point I'm trying to make, is that, with a lot that's happening, time that we're sitting and, maybe staring at a wall, contemplating, thinking, pondering. I definitely don't want it to sound as if I think that is wasteful either. There is a lot to think about right now, and um, why the meditation practice is even more critical at these moments to allow things to settle and really contemplate everything that is happening. So, Samir, honest answer, the pandemic has lasted so long, I barely remember what life was like before. Yeah, it's true. A lot of us, I keep saying temple closed. We're coming up on 11 months. So, um, this has just become the norm for us now. Me sitting here staring at these screens and seeing little emojis pop up. It's just what we're used to. So, this is life as it is right now. And so let's just embrace it. All right, a couple more here. Laurel, for me, productivity tends to come in waves. So I'm working on being more intentional and diligent about how I spend my time. Also working on establishing a healthier balance between work and self-care. Definitely. Yeah, beautifully said. Self-care is so important. At least in some ways, although I always feel I could get more done, one thing I've been better at is cooking and working on a few small organization projects. Yeah, it's great. And these are all things, again, as all the questions that they're out there, these are not things that are right or wrong answers, just things to ponder and explore. Rachel, if you don't sweep the leaves today, you'll have twice as many tomorrow. I was like, oh, that sounds familiar. That's it. I mean, I just think that that's such a beautiful metaphor for so many things in our lives when it comes to taking care of our minds. If your mind has been a mess for 20 years, it doesn't get cleaned up in one day. So it's a work in progress. We keep sweeping the leaves every day. We keep training the mind every day. We keep working on compassion every day. The sweeping of the leaves is all about the diligence and the practice of really staying present. So with that, we'll go ahead and sit. And I just saw you're trying to be productive sometimes, fall into Netflix binge. I hear you, and even on Netflix, there's a lot of educational things out there to watch. There's a lot of things to watch that'll waste time, but a lot of education can be had as well, even on Netflix. So, all right, we'll go ahead and we'll sit. If you are joining for the first time with meditation, a couple things I'll tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos, and the practice of meditation is learning to get quiet and still within all the chaos. So posture, you just want to relax the shoulders. Hands can be on the knees or on the lap. If you're on a cushion, slide into the front third. Push the stomach forward, allows the back to straighten. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important with the practice, don't expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And eventually, just settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Knowing throughout the practice you'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside. These are not distractions, not disruptions. Simply what's happening around us as we sit. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it, release that thought, return attention, focus to the breath. Where's your mind? Return attention, focus to the breath. letting go of expectations, letting go of judgments from the practice, just sitting, breathing. Keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound, each thought, each physical sensation, yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, wanting nothing but to sit and breathe. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe, knowing with each breath there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. Most important with the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you'd prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being no different than any one of us who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means very simply for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. The practice of meditation is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. So all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives, but with a mind that's steady, clear, and focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. Imagine going a day without being disturbed by someone. Most of us can't even make it an hour without being disturbed. This practice is not an escape. It is direct perception into the present moment, and sometimes that present moment is incredibly difficult. And so this practice is learning to be with things as they are. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do. Learning to be kind to yourself and everybody else you encounter every moment of your life. And that's why it's so difficult. Each day we are triggered with so many different things around us, people and places and things that put us in situations to respond. And how we respond determines exactly how we feel, and is a reflection of exactly how we feel. So if someone around us does something, it triggers us and it gives us a feeling of frustration or anger. The practice is to recognize that emotion as it arises. This is frustration, this is anger. To see it for what it is, to see that it's because we expected someone to be a different way, and to respond appropriately. But to give ourselves time to allow the emotions to settle. What most of us do is we respond quickly to the emotion as it arises. So someone does something, it triggers us, we feel anger, we feel frustration, we feel disappointment, and then we immediately respond from that place. And therefore, that initial reaction of frustration or anger then becomes how we treat others. So the practice of meditation is allowing ourselves to slow down and create a gap to where we can recognize and be with the emotion as it arises, understand it, know that it's impermanent, meaning it will change, it will go away, and not be triggered so quickly. This is a well-trained mind. Most of us don't have well-trained minds, so we run around all day long responding immediately to that initial emotional reaction we have. And I don't know about you, but when I had the emotion of anger and I responded from a place of anger immediately, nothing good ever came from that. It just continued to perpetuate more anger. They do something, it creates anger, I respond with anger, and it's just this vicious cycle that never ends. So the practice is allowing the mind to settle and observe. So with that, I'll pause. I always like to use the rest of the time to open up to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. There's a chat box there somewhere on your screen. Feel free to type in a question and I'll respond. If you're new, there are no wrong questions. There are no simple questions. So feel free to share or ask anything you'd like. And as always, I'd prefer to use the time to address what's on your mind. I can ramble, so I'd rather ramble in the direction of something you're curious about. But as we're waiting for questions to come in, just take a moment and really recognize that all day today, you're going to have things that will trigger you. And one of the most common things people ask is, what's the best time to meditate? And one of my common responses is anytime you'll do it, which is true. But I also want to add that if you're able to start your day, even if it's 3 minutes to 5 minutes, whatever it is, if you're able to start your day with this, it will help throughout the rest of your day. So there's no real wrong time to do it. I think it's good anytime, morning, afternoon, and night, that we can do it in small doses. But I highly encourage people to take a few moments every morning. Wake up, get out of bed, splash water on your face, drink your coffee, whatever your morning routine is, and then take a few moments to just sit. Sit and breathe, allowing sensation of breath to just occur. Not trying to plan or figure out or judge or critique, but just giving yourself a few moments, knowing that the whole day is going to be filled with absolute chaos. It will be filled with difficulties and challenges. And the way we meet them is really important, not just to us, but to others. So, questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. And like I said, I'll use the time to respond. All right. So, question from Samir: minimalists, tiny homes, unplugging. Do you see any parallels in these fads with Buddhist thought? Um, yes and no. I mean, I could probably see similarities in just about anything with Buddhist thought or parallels. Um, I think I said this a week ago. I saw someone posted something kind of joking about how 30 years ago, if you were living in your van down by the river, it was not such a healthy, successful life view according to the views of most people. Nowadays, living in your van by the river is like a life goal for people. So I think that, as they say, the times they are changing. Um, I specifically this idea of a minimalist and a tiny home and unplugging. I always like to look at Buddhist teachings from the attempts to look at it from the lens of the Buddha himself, who was a simple human. He went from being a prince, of having all the wealth, all the riches, all the women, everything you could imagine, living in a palace. And he left that life to be a homeless wandering beggar with 7 items. He had his robe, he had his bowl, he had a blade to shave his head, he had a stone to shave to sharpen the blade. He had a strainer, so when they sifted water, no insects or bugs or anything was killed. He had thread to sew the robe. So there were 7 items. So one could say that, the Buddha himself, Siddhartha, was a minimalist with very few objects. As far as a tiny home, he basically roamed and slept wherever they were. Temples, monasteries, places had been built for them to rest. He definitely unplugged from life as a prince and choosing to live the life as an ascetic. So all of those things, being a minimalist, a tiny home, unplugging, all of those things really occurred with the Buddha's life himself. Now, I think if we compare that to modern day, not so much to try to draw parallel to the Buddha or his life or his intentions, but I think it's important to look at our intentions. You could be attached and crave and desire being a minimalist. Um, You could attach, crave, and desire, a tiny home. You could be so obsessed with unplugging, right? I mean, I don't know. I've never had a tiny home. I think it'd be really cool to have a tiny home, but you could have a tiny home and spend 3 years decorating it and critiquing it and trying to make it perfect. You could be a minimalist and have 10 objects, but be so attached to them that if you lost one of them, your entire life would shatter. Um, you could be so obsessed with unplugging from the world that you've really isolated yourself, and you're missing out on really what's actually occurring in the world. So I don't want to say that being a minimalist or having a tiny home or unplugging necessarily means that you're following Buddhist teachings, because it doesn't. I think there's aspects to all of them that apply. But again, it's really with, like everything in this practice, what is your intention behind it? So hopefully that's helpful in responding to your question. I will say, in addition to that, Buddhist thought means a lot of different things to different people. And so again, I think it's important to look at what is your intention, right? I don't want to, I want to make it very clear, especially for those who are new to Buddhism, that practicing Buddhism doesn't mean you must be a minimalist. It doesn't mean you must have a tiny home. It doesn't mean you must unplug. I like Thich Nhat Hanh's phrase of engaged Buddhism, where you can be incredibly engaged. When I got into this practice and I came from a life of having a lot of money through my career, and I left that, I wish I still had that money today, because I could do beautiful things with it. So the money in itself is not bad. I wish I owned tons of huge houses, because you could house a lot of people and create really beautiful, safe places for people. And I personally wouldn't want to be unplugged, because then I wouldn't be engaged in society and working to make a difference. So again, it really is just depends on your intention behind all of those things. Thanks, Samir. Hope that's helpful. Molly, your question: when sitting with physical pain or discomfort, how do you personally handle that? So there's a couple different thoughts on physical pain with meditation. It's often going to occur if you have a bad back, if you have bad knees, if you have any sort of chronic pain and you sit still, there's going to be physical pain that can and will potentially arise. So I think it's important to recognize a couple of things. If you can observe the pain, continue to breathe, and just try to stay still, that's great. If simple moving of your leg, for example, let's say you're sitting and your knee hurts. If you know that you can move your leg and relieve yourself from pain and return to stillness, then by all means move your leg. Often people get too attached to, like, I must sit perfectly still and not move, right? If my nose itches and I'm in meditation, there's two simple choices. I can sit here for 10 minutes fighting this urge or craving or desire to itch my nose. And for 10 minutes, all I'm focused on is this aversion to moving, because I think it's more important to sit still. That's ridiculous. It's just as simple to sit, nose itches, scratch your nose, back to stillness, and I'm done. And then I won't spend 10 minutes fixating on whether or not I should move. With regards to physical pain, it's not always that simple. Physical pain, discomfort is going to be there, as I said earlier. And it is also a reminder of present moment. So I think learning to be with it is important. There's a great teaching on this called the second arrow, where the first arrow, say, for example, is physical pain, chronic pain. So it's the recognition that I have, say, for example, chronic back pain. That's the first arrow. The second arrow would be, now I'm angry that I have chronic back pain. The third arrow would be, now I'm sad. The fourth arrow would be, now I'm depressed because I'm sad, because I'm angry, because I have chronic pain. So from simple pain, we've now added all these emotional responses: sadness, anger, depression, as opposed to just observing and being with physical pain. I always say meditation is not going to fix your physical pain. It doesn't make physical pain go away. It very often may intensify it. But learning to be with it and not allow it to emotionally destroy you, I think is really important. So hopefully that's helpful. Thanks, Molly. Um, Rachel, do you consider Buddhism a religion? Always one of my favorite questions, especially for those who are new to Buddhist practice. There's this especially for Western people, there's this seemingly endless argument and debate over Buddhism being a religion or philosophy. So I'll share a couple of views. First is to recognize that by our kind of Western definition of religion, it says that religion is a belief in a higher power, right? Buddhism does not have that. There is no higher power. There's no belief in something greater than you, right? The Buddha himself was a Hindu man who was raised in India 500 years before Christ. So he was Hindu. What he taught ended up being called, and what we now know as Buddhism, is a way of life. He taught it as a philosophy, I believe. That's my view. Someone asked the Dalai Lama years ago, does this country need more Buddhists? And he said, the world has enough Buddhists. This country just needs more people who are peaceful and happy. A friend of mine years ago, who is a Catholic, she started practicing Buddhism, and she referred to Buddhism as a software upgrade. She said it actually drove her closer to her religious faith, and I think that's beautiful. I think in this country, Buddhism is practiced, and we see it at the Dharma Bum Temple for 14 years. The people who show up, we see 600-800 people a week. Very few of them are Buddhist. They're Christian, Catholic, Muslim, Jewish, pagan. They're coming from all different walks of life. And they come to Buddhism for the most part, not for any sort of religious aspect, but for the teachings of how to be kind and compassionate, for the philosophy and way of life. But I want to add this also. Let me preface this by saying that many people come to Buddhism in the Western culture because they were turned off by other religions. And they'll say, I don't like religion, I'm going to get into Buddhism, right? Buddhism is one of the world's oldest and largest religions. So for those of you who think I don't like religion, I think it's important to understand that you may practice Buddhism as a philosophy and way of life, and that's beautiful. That's what it is for me also. But it's also a very devout religious faith. If you go to Thailand today and you tell them that what they're doing isn't religion, it's kind of insulting, right? If you show up to Taiwan and say, this isn't religion, this is philosophy, I think it's kind of insulting. It would be like going into a Christian church and saying what you're practicing is not religion. So it is very religious. If you go to cultural Buddhist temples, if you go to Thai temples, Vietnamese temples, Japanese temples, if you go to these temples, you'll see tons of ritual and Dharma instruments, bells and whistles and gongs and bowing and robes and chanting and incense, and it'll feel very much like you're at a religious church. So the direct, simple answer to your question is Buddhism is a religion, but it's typically not practiced that way, nor do Buddhists care if you call yourself a Buddhist. It's not important that you call yourself a Buddhist or that you become a Buddhist, right? Buddhism isn't going to save you. It's going to force you to hold up a mirror and look back at yourself, your own words, your own actions, your own way of being. This is what Buddhism is going to do. It's going to be a moment for you to reflect back on your actions, your thoughts, your words. So there's a couple thoughts for you on Buddhism being a religion or philosophy. And again, I'm fully aware that most people in the West come to Buddhism because they're not looking for religion, they're looking for a way of life. And I think it's just important to always be mindful and respectful to the millions of people around the world for 2,500 years that have practiced it religiously. So, good question. All right, Holly, do you have recommendations for who to go to for people who want to deepen their meditative practices? I live in North County, although location is less important these days. So a couple things. I'm the worst person to ask how to deepen your meditation practice. And let me explain why. Well, first of all, let me start with this. There's really not, that I'm aware of, I wouldn't go anywhere right now for meditation. With the pandemic and things the way they are, I would stay home. So I wouldn't go anywhere for meditation. Aside from all that, the greatest place to deepen your meditation practice is exactly where you are. Right? Often people think that, let's fly halfway around the world and let's spend a bunch of money and sit on a mountaintop and go meet with some guru. Well, if you're an angry, pissed off, miserable person, then you just spent a lot of money to go halfway around the world, sit up on a mountaintop with a guru to recognize you're an angry, pissed off person. So I'm not a big fan of thinking that we need anywhere else to go to deepen our practice. Right? I had that personal experience, monastery life, 11 months, 16 years ago. Being in a monastery didn't deepen my meditation. My meditation practice became what it is from diligently working on it every day where you are. So right where you sit right now is where you deepen your meditation practice. Less distractions, more focus. Less turning to other devices, more focus. Less thinking you need to go somewhere else, and more about embracing the present moment. There's a wall, most likely, right where you are at that you can stare at for days on end and breathe and deepen your meditation practice. Now, again, the reason I say I'm the worst person to ask this question is, as a Zen practitioner, meditation practice is not about going deeper. Meditation practice is a concentration and focus on the present moment. The present moment is just sitting in the present moment. There's nothing deeper to it. Here I am. This is it. I'm sitting. I'm breathing. I'm staring at screens. I'm speaking. There is an intense level of concentration and focus that is required in each moment. That is your meditation practice. I believe that we, to use the word deepen our meditation practice in everyday life, not in what we call seated meditation. So I know that's probably not the answer you were hoping for or looking for, but I truly believe that that's the wisest answer. I'm not a fan of thinking that you find some place and pay somebody a few $100 to deepen your meditation practice. I just don't think it works that way. So thanks, Holly. All right, last question here. Do the countries who practice Buddhism as a religion think of religion as the worship of a higher power? And you're welcome, Holly. It's a great question, Holly. I think it's a question to continue to ask people. So I can only give you my thoughts on it, but I just am always very careful when people want to deepen their practice, because there's some person out there calling themselves some meditation guru, and for $79 a month, they're going to help you deepen your meditation practice and take you to some higher spiritual level. This is it. There's nowhere else to go except right here. All right, sorry. Do the countries who practice Buddhism as a religion think of religion as the worship of a higher power? It's a good question. The countries that practice Buddhism as a religion. So for the most part, yes. So my experience in Taiwan and as a practicing Buddhist there is very much the belief in Amitabha Buddha, in Buddha's Pure Lands, in Bodhisattvas. So now I don't know that I got the sense that there's this belief that they think the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are higher powers, but they're definitely greater than the self. And at the same time, no different than the self. So if you go to other countries or even cultural Buddhist temples here, you will see absolute praying to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. I do prayers every single day to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas from all time, all space, all directions. It's for me very much a devout faith in Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and Dharma protectors. I believe in all of that very much like a religious practice. It's obviously not how I share it, because that's not what most people are looking for. Most people are just stressed out and angry and want to calm down and make changes in their life. And I think that's most beneficial. So I don't share belief of, reciting Buddha's or Bodhisattva's names. It's just not the approach we take with Dharma Bum Temple. But it's definitely a prayer-based practice. All of the sutras, all of the mantras, all the chanting, as I said earlier, they are to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So it's a really beautiful practice. I always encourage people to go to these temples, Taiwanese temple, a Japanese temple, Vietnamese temple, Tibetan. Go to these places, and it's really beautiful to just participate and observe and see how heartfelt it really is. So it's a heart-based practice. So, all right, great questions. With that, I'll go ahead and close for today. Before you jump off, we'll do a transfer of merit, and I'll make a few announcements as we join palms together. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who need it most. So a few quick announcements before you all head off. Thanks for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma Bum. We opened the Dharma Bum Temple 14 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers. We're not looking for students. We're just practitioners. We take our best understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully makes sense to those who show up. So every night we have different classes going on. The dharmabums.org has the whole schedule. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we're live on YouTube. And Saturday morning, I do that as well. The rest is on Zoom. We have a huge recovery community. So anyone battling addiction, our college group, our teenage group, Monday through Friday morning meditation. So there's always something going on. We closed Buddha for You 11 months ago as well. But that is also now, there's a new online store, so you can go to Buddha for You and check that out. Lots of new books. So if you're looking for a good book to read. Speaking of books, today, Marisa will be leading our second gathering of our book club. We are reading Pristine Mind by Orjin Choang Rinpoche. It's a beautiful text on unconditional happiness. The book also you can get online through Buddha for You. That will be at 2:00 today. If you missed last time, it doesn't matter. It's not something you have to start at from the beginning. Just jump in anytime you want. Again, all that info is on the Dharma Bums schedule on the website. I said this last week, but we will have our virtual volunteer meetings soon, as well as our Friday night gatherings soon. So we will remain closed until we feel it's safe to be open. Until that time, we'll continue virtually. So please, it's a beautiful practice to wear a mask and stay home as much as possible, and don't do any things that would put others at harm. So if I never see you again, think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds. That's really the heart of this practice. So thanks all for being here, and I'll see you soon.